Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a conversation on these three top stories. The first one is Kalonzo's warm welcome in Opoda Farm. What does this mean politically moving forward ahead of the 2027 realignments politically, now that at Opoda Farm, Kalonzo was sanitized as the only human being in the Kenyan political scene whose moral compass is likened to that of Raila Odinga. Our second story is Ruto's biggest headache. How does Ruto intend to balance the silent voices within now the UDA party that says that they will bolt out if Kindiki is not retained in 2027? This is following Oburu's conditional remarks that the ODM party is not going to settle for anything less other than the deputy presidency. This is hitting Ruto with shocks, as Wanga, who has been the groomed candidate for that particular arrangement between the UDA and the ODM parties come 2027, is no longer the ground's favorite. On the third story, we look at Gachagua's secret meetings. Two series of meetings have since been held by Rigathi Gachagua and other members of the united opposition, but these meetings have since had Fred Okengo Matiangi not attending. As we project our lenses at what could be the in-house fights that consolidate the united opposition in absence of Matiangi, we also keeps you updated on what is happening in Mbeere North. I'm your host Ogola, and this is The Civic Lens. Now, thank you so much for keeping it The Civic Lens if you've always subscribed to our channel, but if you're joining us for the first time, please interact with the subscribe button so that we could be bringing for you this news very timely as they occur in the Kenyan political scene. Also, we have the People's Mirror KE now as our reporting channel, and you can find things happening in the Kenyan political scene live right there as they happen. We also appreciate if you would subscribe for our growth jointly. Now, let's delve into the main story. Kalonzo's warm welcome at Opoda Farm. Something happened within the week. Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the party leader of the Wiper Patriotic Front, the Wiper Party has since been named from the Wiper Democratic Party to the Wiper Patriotic Front to put into consideration the interest of the youths and the Gen Zs who they might perhaps want to tap to join that particular party ahead of 2027. Now, the party leader of the Wiper Patriotic Front, alongside other officials that have since been elected to different positions of power under that very party ticket, visited Opoda Farm to mourn with the family of the late Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Kalonzo, who was accompanied by two governors, including Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and Governor Wavinya Ndeti from Machakos, who are both from the Wiper Democratic Party, was also accompanied by Kamba traditional leaders, Kamba religious leaders, members of county assemblies and MPs who are elected under the Wiper Democratic Party, and a total of 500 delegation visited the Opoda Farm led by Honorable Kalonzo. Another thing that was notable in their visit and has since been criticized, yet was actually very culturally right, was the fact that Honorable Kalonzo's delegation drove into the Opoda Farm a herd of 100 heads of cattle in honor of the culture and in honor of the late Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, this theatrics aside, including coronation of Raila Jr. in spirit of Kalonzo, hoping that we hope to see that this becomes the political journey beginning for Raila Jr., there was substance in speech that outdid all these theatrics. And here at the Civic Lens, we want to go beyond the noise and the theatrics and focus on the speeches that were made there and the effect that those particular collections of speeches had in the realignment of politics that is currently going on ahead of the 2027 major elections. Now, four people made different speeches. There was the speech that was made by Ida Odinga, there was the speech that was made by Kalonzo himself, there was the speech that was made by Honorable Orengo, there was the speech that was made by the Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. I will come back to the substance of this speech and their effect politically ahead of 2027. But first, let's take a look at the speech that was made by Honorable Osewe Odinga, who is the area MCA that was one of the few speeches that were made prior to these four major speeches and what it meant. The MCA Honorable Osewe Odinga, who is a sister-in-law to the late Raila Amolo Odinga, took it to the stand and said that the presence of Kalonzo makes Mama Ida emotional because it reminds Mama Ida of Raila Amolo Odinga. So when this statement was made in the very beginning, we did not understand its weight until later on the other 4 speeches were made. And so I will take you to these 4 speeches individually and the political bullet that was contained in each of them. Let's start with the speech of the governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr., the guest that came with Kalonzo Musyoka. When Mutula took it to the podium, he was actually addressing Raila Jr. and he was just recollecting some time back in 2013 when now his dad was already dead. His sister was not allowed to vie for the position that his dad had left because his sister was allegedly not a registered voter. He did not bring this out up, but that is the part of history that details back on why Kitty Kilonzo actually did not step up, yet she was the preferred candidate then to replace the late Mutula. But let's go back to the substance of this speech. Mutula Kilonzo Jr. was saying after exiting the scene by the sister Honorable Kitty Kilonzo, the all focuses was on him. And one time Raila walks into Serena Hotel and asks him directly that I want to hear it from you. Are you ready for this particular political seat? And his answer being yes, now moved Raila and Kalonzo to ensure that they actually put in place everything to assure his win. And as a result, that is how he joined politics, became a senator for some time, and is currently the governor of the very county that has been a senator for 2 terms.
And this is what your father said, and I want to repeat it to you. The king is dead, long live the king.
So this particular speech was being aimed at Raila Odinga to actually tell him that whatever might be happening might make you feel that you're not ready to step into the Kenyan political scene, but Mutula was looking back at his own time and thinking that even him then, he walked into this particular scene when he was not ready. And so he was showing Raila Jr. that with being with Kalonzo, actually is being in the right hands, and so being with Kalonzo can actually aid in him being mentored and being prepared to walk into the political path of his father, even if right now he might feel unfit for that particular position. Now that was a political bullet showing that the people in the Kenyan political scene are looking at the Raila Amolo Odinga's home, and they're looking at the replacement of Raila Amolo Odinga, and they are patient with the junior. People like Kalonzo and Mutula Kilonzo Jr. now are patient with the junior to work with him politically ahead of not only 2027 elections, but to prepare him to become the man that now takes up the mantle of the father politically moving forward. Then Orengo spoke. And when Orengo was speaking, Orengo's speech was very, very categorical. It was the sanitization on Kalonzo's name. And Orengo was saying that, and he repeated this thrice. He said 2 things. First, he said that there is no single individual that he knows in the Kenyan political scene right now who has the moral standing closer to Raila Odinga just like Kalonzo. And so he feels like if you take Raila Amolo Odinga off the political scene, now that nature has done that, then the only person to fill that void morally, according to Governor Orengo of Siaya, is none other than Kalonzo Musyoka. And then he goes ahead and says this, that for 3 successive terms he has sat in particular discussions on what or who was to actually be decided to become the flag bearer was being discussed. And in these particular 3 meetings where a flag bearer was being discussed, Kalonzo has numbers without time. Out of the 3 of them left that position for Raila Odinga, subduing his political ambitions. He gave examples with 2013, 2017 when Kalonzo subdued his interest and became the running mate of Raila Odinga, and he also gave an example with the 2022 where Kalonzo missed the running mate position but still offered his allegiance to Raila Odinga. So these statements had their own political bullets, and the political bullets in these statements is this. Orengo is showing that Kalonzo is sanitized morally to replace Baba, and 2 is showing that Kalonzo is the only person out of the people that are now faking friendship with the Raila Odinga post-death who has proven his loyalty and stood by him over this time. So the message we are getting from Orengo's speech clearly is that he is endorsing Kalonzo as the person that the spirit of Raila would perfectly have endorsed in that particular locality. The effect of this to the President Ruto is something that we will discuss in our second story. Then there was the third speech. The third speech came from Kalonzo himself, and Kalonzo was saying categorically that he feels like no one else is fit to take the mantle of Raila Odinga other than him. He recalled 2013 when certain individuals actually ordered Raila to be killed, and he said that when they were in the house of Tuju, they counted over 10 bullets aimed at Raila's armored car that actually had been intended to take away Raila's life. So he faulted individuals that are now loudly mourning Raila, yet 2 years ago down the line were the people baying for Raila's blood. And he said that for that reason, just for that reason, he was assuring Raila Odinga that one, he is not a mganga, and the legacy of Oginga Odinga should not be remembered that way, because that is a political creation that was formed by the other camp. But beyond that, he was promising Raila Odinga that he will stand and reject all the oppressive policies that they have jointly rejected in their previous arrangements. He finished his speech by asking the Luo people to stand with him. Now, the final speech, the final bullet that actually assassinated the enemy was the statements that were made by Honorable Dr. Ida Betty Odinga, who said that for a long time Kalonzo has been a friend to Baba, and that particular friendship cannot be wiped off. In her statements, she said that Kalonzo is a genuine friend. Now, right now that Kenyan political scene and inheritance of Raila's land is being discussed, eyes and focus have been previously put in ODM as the sound voice to communicate where the supporters of Raila go post his death. However, with the visit of Kalonzo in Opoda farm, we are having a new trajectory to this particular political myth that the Odinga family might have formed a cohort of their own, independent of the statements of the ODM party, that will gear the mourners and the supporters of Raila Odinga individually, not as a party leader, to where they intend it to go. And that particular cohort deciding the voter on where they're supposed to go do not really seem to be aligning with President Ruto, even if Oburu Odinga in the leadership of the ODM party on the other hand are having conversations of getting into terms of agreement with Ruto come 2027. So the shock that comes from Opoda farm Nyamira, Kangoka Jaramogi is this, that maybe the focus and the ground is being prepared for Kalonzo, even if opportunity was given to President Ruto to do all whatever he did and his theatrics in laying to rest the enigma Raila Amolo Odinga. The new powerhouse is the Queen Mother, the chess mistress, Honorable Dr. Ida Betty Odinga, and we need to keep our lenses on this woman single-handedly and not the ODM party when we are talking about who inherits the backyard of Raila Amolo Odinga come 2027. Our second story, this is the biggest headache, and our second story just stems from our first story, Ruto's biggest headache. When Oburu Odinga made the statement that they're not going to settle for anything other than DP, that kind of fell within the chessboard of President Ruto, because people said, and political analysts looked at it from the angle that Wanga was already being groomed for that position, and this was actually boiling really badly for Kindiki, who has really proven himself since he took over. So these particular voices were silent voices before Oburu made the DP condition, but then Oburu did it, and so members of the UDA party or friends of Ruto government right now from the Mount Kenya region also intended to bolt. They said that they are not going to be in this particular agreement post 2027 if the interest is downplayed by downplaying Kindiki. Now let's look at the bigger picture of this. You see, Ruto has since delineated the mountain region, and for a fact, Ruto has since really escaped the Kikuyu effect in Kenyan politics. He might really be keeping his close ties with Uhuru Kenyatta and the likes, but really in the major picture of how Kikuyus have been contributing to the Kenyan politics, Ruto has downplayed that. Of course, other analysts feel like Kikuyu still have the highest number of members in the cabinet secretary positions. That's okay, but if you look at the alignment, the political alignment ahead of 2027, Ruto has continually sidelined the mountain region. And so with ousting Gachagua and killing the Kikuyu effect, he brought in Kindiki to still, maintain the tempos of the temperatures, or rather the moods around the mountain area. Now, with the demand of Oburu Odinga requiring that they are not going to settle for anything other than number 2, Ruto was looking at creating a position of number 2 for the ODM party, because he promised in the burial of Raila Odinga that they will protect and they will support the ODM party up to 2027. And in doing this, he was already creating a position for number number 2 with the ODM party in mind, and Kindiki perhaps was going to be sorted some other way. Now the members of the Mountain Kenya region are saying no, you cannot remove Rigathi Gachagua and then shortly after you remove Kindiki just because Oburu has brought out an ultimatum. So President Ruto's government is left to decide who is worthy to retain. Should he retain Kindiki so that he still have a little reach within this particular mountain area, or should he abide to the request of Oburu and do away with the mountain region but consolidate Nyanza behind his back? Shock upon him while he's making that decision, because now the house of the Queen Mother seems to be very differently speaking from the ODM party cohort. While the ODM party might be having an agreement between themselves within the party and Ruto's government for position of number 2, it seems like from our previous analysis just within this pod that the statements of the Queen Mother seems to be aligning towards Kalonzo, and this puts Ruto at a very difficult crossroads. Is he going to endear himself to Ida? Is he going to endear himself to Oburu and have the ODM support him even if the actual supporters remain with Ida? Or is he going to keep Kindiki and downplay both the request of Oburu and the statements of Ida and let the Nyanza region go down? The civic lens keep our lenses focused on President Ruto and the UDA to see what he will do in making this political determination ahead of 2027 presidential elections. Then we talk about Gachagua and the secret meetings of the united oppositions that have been going on without Fred. Sometimes back we detailed that Jeremiah Kioni was actually the constant voice of Jubilee that was putting Fred Okengo Matiangi in a very hot position within the united opposition arrangement. Because within the united opposition arrangement, they look at themselves as a meeting of equals, and so anyone from among them could be the presidential flag bearer, even if you can see very clearly that stars are aligning for Kalonzo, but as they are right now, they have not declared one presidential candidate. And so this particular arrangement should be an arrangement or a meeting of equals. But Fred Okengo Matiangi is being looked at differently within this arrangement because of the utterances of the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, which essentially is the position of the Jubilee Party. And the position of the Jubilee Party seems to be uncomfortable with any other person becoming a candidate other than Fred Okengo Matiangi. In that line, they are saying that if Fred Okengo Matiangi does not become the candidate, then they can go solo way. So we saw meetings being held without Fred Okengo Matiangi, and information arriving at the civic lens is that there are discussions that have been held twice this week without Fred Okengo Matiangi being consulted. Is Matiangi finally out? We really do not know whether or not Matiangi is out, because in the joint conversations of the united opposition, Fred Okengo Matiangi's name still features. But we are looking at a scenario that if they pull Fred Okengo Matiangi out, then what will be the effect of that for their votes from the mountain region? We keep you gazing at the mountain region and the decisions of the united opposition ahead of the decisions that they are going to make whether or not to retain Fred Okengo Matiangi moving forward. This is the Civic Lens.